PSVR 2 limitations announced at CES 2023. Do you think all the hype around PSVR 2 headset will be worthwhile? The PSVR 2 appears to be a significant improvement over the first PSVR when it comes out in February 2023, as Sony announced at the CES 2023. The PSVR 2 will expand on what the PS5 is already capable of, and may very well be one of the best VR headsets to date, given the amazingly high-end nature of the PS5 and its DualSense controller. To improve comfort while using the headset, Sony has included a vent to the PSVR 2. The PSVR 2 seems like the ideal headset when everyone is gushing about its incredible features, specifications, design, and technology, but it also has some drawbacks. So, which are some of the PSVR 2's limitations that you should know of? Without further ado, let's get started. Compatibility. Will the PlayStation VR 2 support backward compatibility? Sadly, the answer is no. The PlayStation VR will adopt a completely different approach from the first PSVR, and will not be backward compatible. By completely isolating the two systems and locking away a library of games for the older technology, Sony stated that the next PlayStation VR 2 would not be able to play games from the first PlayStation VR. Why is this, though? Well, Sony has disclosed that none of the PSVR games will be backward compatible with the PSVR 2. The PSVR games are being left behind as the new generation headset introduces various changes that will allegedly improve the virtual reality experience. Adaptive triggers and brand new controllers with haptic feedback are only two of the far more sophisticated features of PSVR 2. This means that creating games for PSVR 2 takes an entirely different strategy than making games for PSVR. Players are more intimately connected to the gameplay experience than ever, thanks to these capabilities, which allow developers to create more vibrant and alive environments. The lack of backward compatibility feels like a disservice to those games and the players who invested in PSVR, even though not all the games were excellent. The wireless Sense controllers that come with PSVR 2 are a clear improvement over the first version, and many of its finest games were created with them in mind. While we can appreciate Sony's desire to start over with PSVR 2, we don't believe this is a good enough excuse for why earlier titles cannot be played on the system. Nishino, a vice president of platform experience at Sony, wasn't trying to defend the fact that PSVR 2 titles won't be playable on the original headset, even though, at some point, this all sounds like a perfect justification for it. To be fair, it's doubtful that allowing PS4 games to run on the PS5 would make moving games from the old system to the new one as simple. Although the PlayStation Move ones are hardly like the controllers in PSVR 2, some initial PSVR titles extensively use them. That could possibly be addressed by developers, although it would need some effort. With more common controllers, like the DualShock 4, the original PSVR was compatible. A lot of the time, depending on the game you were playing, it was the best controller option. Now that PS4 games are backward compatible with PS5, they can be played on the PS5 with the DualSense pad, even though they won't have the custom features like haptic feedback and adjustable triggers. Given the PSVR 2's $549.99 price tag, the choice to forego backward compatibility will be felt negatively by many. With modern PC headsets like the Oculus Quest 2, it isn't a problem. For instance, the Quest Pro and games created for that headset are not suddenly incompatible. Backward compatibility has not always been a priority for Sony when developing its hardware, and it very well could not be the last. Sony was not interested in enabling the PlayStation 4 to read older games, even as Microsoft compiled a list of Xbox 360 games that could be played on the Xbox One. Older games are still available through PlayStation Plus, but the company charges users for any games they may already own. That feeling is reinforced by PSVR 2's lack of backward compatibility, but Sony claims a compelling explanation exists. The gamers, though, how about them? Are they content with the PSVR 2's incompatibility, in your opinion? Most likely not. Lack of backwards compatibility. Although Sony's justification might have some merit, the lack of backward compatibility just seems like an injustice to the games and those who invested in the first-generation headgear. If VR gaming continues, Sony will likely want to release a PSVR 3 at some point, and the PSVR 2 games may be forgotten. The studio has already established the precedent, so there's little to stop it from repeating this. It wouldn't be the first time that a technological advance has caused the issue of backward compatibility to come up. Between console generations, it frequently comes up since many players do not want to part with their libraries. Backward compatibility is typically something that Microsoft's consoles can support, but Sony wasn't as eager to do so when the PS4 was available. It desired that players sign up for PlayStation Now to access classic PS4 games. So, will PSVR 2 get backward compatibility in the future? The PSVR 2's proprietary game library will be the main software focus. But there are also a lot of games from PC headsets coming to PSVR 2. The PSVR 2 is also getting remastered versions of several VR titles, including No Man's Sky and Star Wars: Tales from the Galaxy's Edge. Remasters and re-releases appear to be your best choice for playing previous PSVR games on the new headset for the time being. Of course, if needed, we'd love to see full backward compatibility added to the headset. For these older games, PSVR 2 compatibility could be a game changer. Compared to the 960 by 1080 resolution on the previous headset, the PSVR 2's panel resolution is 2000 by 2040 per eye. It implies that PSVR 2 could display crisper and thus more playable versions of games that previously had a rather graphically soupy look. Even though the PSVR 2 won't be backward compatible, the PSVR library won't necessarily be lost for good. So, which PSVR games are available with free PSVR 2 upgrades? The only way you'll be able to play those earlier games is if the developer decides to release a native PSVR 2 version, because Sony doesn't support PSVR backward compatibility on PSVR 2. As a result, the games will look and perform better, and will be able to utilize new technology, such as Sense controllers. Consumer competition. This feeling of expansion is reinforced by the PSVR 2's lack of backward compatibility, which does not seem very user-friendly. Owners of PSVR devices will have to acquire brand new titles for this new headgear in place of the games they already own. The PSVR 2 versions of several titles are still being developed, and players will probably have to repurchase them. PSVR users will have to spend extra money on titles they currently possess if they want to play them again, as opposed to merely playing their existing games on a new machine. Concerns about game preservation have increased due to the PSVR 2 issue. As new platforms are released, abandoning legacy systems and games, it has always been a heated topic to keep the gaming business alive. Users have lost access to tens of thousands of titles due to online retailers closing their doors. And players have lately lost access to several Games' online features thanks to Ubisoft. As the gaming business develops, many video games are being left behind. Another example of Sony falling behind on games is its choice to forego backward compatibility across its VR headsets. And something needs to be done. Sony is displeasing consumers who purchased its first-generation PSVR by including a variety of upgrades in PSVR 2, which will undoubtedly excite VR enthusiasts. It remains to be seen if players will have to repurchase titles they previously purchased, although that seems to be the most likely scenario. The industry needs to do a better job of reversing this trend of leaving games behind, because this is just the latest in a long line of such steps. PSVR 2 games. Since the release of this headset is still some time away, it's not entirely surprising that, so far, only a few PSVR 2 games have been officially confirmed. Sony now believes more than 20 games are being developed for their next-generation headgear, but has only revealed a small number of them. There are VR versions of Resident Evil 8, Resident Evil 4, No Man's Sky, and Horizon Call of the Mountain, an original game set in the same universe as Zero Dawn and Forbidden West. Call of the Mountain features a fantastic river adventure, where you can get a stunning view of the gaming universe and the main plot. Sony praises this virtual reality experience as the ultimate PlayStation VR 2 debut. Horizon Call of the Mountain is not an open-world game, in contrast to its two 2D predecessors, and cleverly guides you through the plot, keeping you interested in about 7 hours. The Walking Dead and Star Wars video games are also coming soon. Although it's a good beginning, it's easy to envision some customers wanting more options, particularly if they have no interest in some of those big games. So, what do you think about the upcoming PSVR 2? Are you still going to purchase it despite its limitations? Comment down below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on your notification bell.